little bit about legalizing drugs in the United States. We've been talking about law enforcement under attack in the United States, but there's also another element of society that we're being forced to deal with. I want you to take a look at this picture. This is a gang leader. If you happen to run into him, you're going to hope a law enforcement agent is somewhere in your midst. But this is a huge issue. 1.5 million people are members of roughly 35,000 different gangs in this country. Lee, you've been wanting to discuss gang violence for a long time on the show. It's big time right here in Atlanta, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I think it's very prevalent that people need to pay close attention to it, you know, not just in America, but here at home. When you think about a metropolis like Atlanta that has the home of over 120 gangs, just in the city of Atlanta alone, and you have it divided out into zones, and you have different factions that rule over these different zones, and people that have to be respective, and people that have to pay certain restitutions and do all these different things in order just to exist within their own communities and neighborhood. It says to me that we really need to really look at the quality of life that is taking place, and people need to really understand what you're dealing with when you walk around just on an everyday basis.
I don't think we have a clue.
So is it poverty most of the time that drives people into gangs? I know it's also, you know, camaraderie, sense of family.
It's more the sense of family. What we're seeing now, especially in young people that actually confess, many of it there is more for protection. I was actually in a meeting with one of the local school superintendents not too long ago, and we were working on some different options, and we had actually invited some kids from some of the local high schools there to help talk about gang problems in school. And the thing that was startling to all of us was that when the kids spoke, it was like E.F. Hutton. We had a moment, and the young man said to us, "You can talk all day long about what you're putting in provision here at the school, and you can put more resource officers in here, you can put more cameras in the school, but when I leave here, I have to go home and deal in the community. So it doesn't matter if you're standing right beside me, I still know I'm not safe."
You know, that happened to me as a child, because I was graced because I had a mother that took the whole thing and made sure that we made a shift, because I was being recruited by a gang in Brooklyn, and my mother took the time and said, "You know what, this is not going to happen to you." Good. She sent me to school from Brooklyn to Long Island and had me stay with the family the entire week. I didn't see my parents, I didn't see anybody until the week was over. And if she hadn't done that, because I have cousins that, you know, live the life, you know, and these are the kind of things that we, like you're saying, I have to go home. Yeah. I still have to fend for myself, and sometimes it's really just a matter of protection.
Yes,
Cameron, I read this once, that a person will join a gang for the same reason a person joins church. They want to belong. And it's a sense of belonging.
There's so many different types of gangs. There's street gangs, motorcycle gangs, prison gangs, organized crime gangs. At our church service here, gosh, maybe a couple of months ago, a little black boy walked to our church service. He enjoyed it so much. He'd been coming kind of regular, but this was on like a Wednesday night service, and it wasn't dark when he got there, but it was going to be dark. And he asked my son, the pastor, "Will you please drive me home? The gangs in my neighborhood have been shooting all afternoon."
Wow. Yes. Yeah. And that's the reality for many people, and we have to understand that is where, you know, we live in that kind of society. Just the other day on the news, there was a grandmother, 80 years old, who her house was raided with bullets, you know, just as she's in resting. I know in my own personal family, you know, we talk about it. It's tied into a lot of drug use and other things. I've had relatives, you know, as all of us do, that have partaken in different things that they shouldn't be. And many times it's not that you might be the person that's affiliated with the gang, but in order to get you back, they come and they hurt your family.
They go after the family,
you know, and so we have to know that.
And there's levels of gangs, like there's street gangs that are like territorial, and then there's all the way up where they have the names and they have a lot of members, and they're not just they're across the country. And I read this, the Crips, they're like one of the most. Do you know that the Crips were started by two 16-year-old boys?
Yes.
And now there's how many, like thousands and thousands. They're not just in the United States, they're in Canada, started by two 16-year-old boys.
I'm going to tell you something. One of the greatest preachers I've ever heard is Nicky Cruz. Y'all know Nicky Cruz?
Yeah. I went to college with his daughter.
Woo-hoo, Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
The gang leader.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what, when those guys, when God gets a hold of the gang leaders,
That's right.
then you've got something right there.
These are guys who have
David
faced
Wilkerson,
death
yeah.
on a regular basis. They live a death life 24/7.
Yeah.
And what has happened is, again, going back to the beginning, you have to understand some of these gangs didn't start out as being gangs to fulfill crime. They started out as gangs to protect their neighborhood. And as it came about and things, started to escalate, then you have other gangs wanting to get into the neighborhood, and it became what it is today. You have a lot of things that are also a bit of propaganda as to what has happened. When you take a look at, let's say, what we consider a terrorist group, or we consider a gang now, which is the Black Panthers back in the day, but these are people that were actually started in order to help the neighborhood and could not find an answer, and so it became something else.
Now I think it's become about cities, and you look at the top cities in our nation that are most well known for gangs is Chicago, LA, Detroit, New Jersey, St. Louis, and Oklahoma City.
Los Angeles.
If you can believe that, the buckle of the Bible Belt.
I couldn't believe Oklahoma City was on there.
I think that the enemy is after cities.
Yes.
That's what he's after, and that's what our mandate is as a church at this point.
Isn't that what we saw, like you were talking earlier about, getting to the gang leader? Isn't that what we saw with the Apostle Paul? Because Paul was a gang leader.
Oh my gosh, was he ever? He was an ISIS leader.
He was killing Christians, and having them thrown into jail because they believed in Christ. But yet, once they had that experience with God, Paul had that. He was right on the Damascus Road, and he had that experience.
That gang leader
with
got
God.
turned around that day, didn't he?
And he brought so many. Nobody else in the Bible is more responsible for proselytizing so many more people.
I'm glad you said that.
But a gang leader,
That's right.
And so we have to understand that there's still relevance if we can get to the core. If someone has that much influence and they can get people that stirred up and motivate, imagine what they can do for the kingdom.
And look what Paul did for cities, going back to how the enemy wants to take our cities. He wants Atlanta, where this is filmed, know. But Paul affected cities because he helped build and plant churches within those cities.
Do you ever have gang leaders come into your church that...
Yes, I'm sure we do. And even in our small town where we are, there are a lot of gangs. There's a lot. My kids are in public school systems, and there's a lot of gangs that they, have to learn how to navigate. There's kind of a culture that you have to learn. Okay, I don't mess with these people. Know
who to stay away from.
Exactly.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's scary.